Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 41 of FinalBossTV, your WoW endgame rating show. I am your host for this adventure. My name is Adam K, aka Bay, and today we are doing one of two of our revisits to our legacy content, I guess you should call it. Way back in the day, our first couple of episodes, we are going to be revisiting Warlocks, but today is Priests. We are joined with Derevka of Something Wicked and Draco of Echoes to talk all about how Priests ended up in the Mists of Pandaria and how broken discipline it is, which everyone's just waiting for that. But first, before we get into all that, wait, there it is, there's Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hey, hello. Nice to see everybody again today. Thanks everyone for coming out for the show. I know I barely made it here.
Did you barely make it here?
Barely survived the weekend, let me tell you.
Someone's birthday was this weekend. Happy birthday.
Yes, my birthday was yesterday. Thank you very much. I'm 28 years old, feeling old, definitely.
Well, I'm gonna beat you to the 30-year-old race, so it's okay.
Yeah, two of them on the show are like, careful.
Careful, yes. Yeah. The first one that's saying careful behind the scenes here, that was just on Convert to Raid. There he is. Hi, Derevka.
Hola. Apparently this is my day of not going outside and it's 75 degrees. So I'm a little stymied with the fact that I'm going to be indoors doing podcast stuff. But it's fun.
Geez, only 75? Sounds cool.
Oh, listen, I don't even want to hear it here. Friggin' North Carolina. Sit back down.
Yeah. Sit back down.
Sit back down. This is like the first day we've actually had like mid-70s like all year so far. So
yeah,
it's a big deal.
Reasons not to live in Boston.
So that's the one reason. That's the only list that you have.
I don't know. Weather's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, but then like public transit.
No, but
kind of awesome.
Well, we can get an opinion from over the pond real quick here. Our other guest is Draco from Echoes. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
How is weather on your side of the planet? Well, we're all complaining about it over here.
Pretty cold. I think it's about 10 degrees outside, and I have no idea about your weird number system.
Oof. Wow, we just got owned.
So, well,
what
10
weird
degrees?
number system? Like what?
Fahrenheit.
Oh, Fahrenheit. I'm like, number system? I'm like, Roman numerals?
Roman numerals? We got those from you!
I want a weather app that shows the weather in Roman numerals now. Definitely.
Yeah, seriously. What is that? So 10 Celsius, what is that? Chat room will tell us. That's like, what? Right above freezing.
Chat room will tell us in like a minute when the delay wears off.
Pretty cold. That's like 40-ish degrees Fahrenheit, 42.
Yeah, I think it's about 40.
Yeah. That's pretty cold.
Don't know what I would do out of the glorious
I've got the window
south.
fully open.
That's pretty cold. What is it outside right now with me? I don't even know. Probably hot. I'm in Florida, so.
Haha.
Don't you laugh at me. What are you laughing at me?
It's 50, Bay, by the way.
What?
10.
50 is 10? Okay.
Wow.
Still pretty cold, though.
I would wither and die. I need the warmth.
Oh, God.
I need the sun. I'm just
extreme.
like, I could never move out of the south. I love it here.
Yeah.
I know, it could be worse. Like, then there's like all other places. Like Seattle, you're living in like a perpetual sneeze.
Oh, gross.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I said when I got off a plane. I was like, I feel like I walked into a sneeze.
Yeah.
Ew. Well, moving right along, let's hear a little bit from you guys about what you do and where we can find you on the internet. Now, I know we've seen you here before, Derevka, but just for anybody who wasn't here on the show last time, where can they find all of your theory crafting, hear the words of Derevka?
Is that a thing?
Words of Derevka.
Power word Derevka? That's actually in the show.
Yes, we should do that.
Exactly.
Make that a thing. No, I mean, most of my priest talking stuff is either on my Twitter or on the How to Priest forums. That's where I do most of my discussion there. I'm an admin there, so I do a lot of that work on that end, both on the back end and also on the forum moderation side. But yeah, mostly I do a lot of talking on Twitter. I realized how many tweets I do a day was like
you don't say.
Scary. Oh, glass houses, Miss Anna. I don't even want to hear it.
And what guild do you play in, Derevka?
I play in this guild that no one's ever heard of before. Something Wicked. No, there's a.
Wow, I hear there are a great bunch of people.
I know, except for the Red Paladin. My God,
she's pretty.
Red Paladin. She stands in fire. Doesn't know how to do Devo Aura.
What's
lay on
Devo
hands
Aura?
is right after you void shift somebody.
You do lay on hands. all the time after I void shift you.
Yes. All right, well, moving along to Draco, where can we find things from you? Where can we find the words of Draco on the internet, and what is it that you do in the community?
Mostly I visit the MMO champ forums and discuss theory crafting and encounters and such there. I am the guildmaster of Echoes, which is a top-end raiding guild on the EU side. And yeah, that's about it.
Where are you guys at right now?
Right.
What did Echoes end up?
I think it's rank 45 world.
Yeah, pretty high up there. You guys
Solid.
see the EU crowd. You love using the world rankings. I always use US and EU separately. So I mean,
That's because US sounds better to you guys because it's high.
Well, Anna and I brought that up before, like, because you're 35th and I'm 37th, and or you're 34th. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, we're 34th.
And in the same time that it took us to kill Heroic Garrosh, there were like 80 European guilds that did it. So it's just so many more guilds over there. Yeah. So when you guys use your world rank, it definitely means a little bit more.
It's a different numbers thing. It's Fahrenheit to Celsius.
See, that's what
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, terrible.
Different scales for different folks.
Yep. Absolutely.
We're all pretty.
We're all pretty? Oh, are we? Okay. That's fair. Yeah, but I guess to open up with the show, I wanted to kind of go back and see how Mists of Pandaria treated holy priests and disciplined priests, those blessed by the light. So we've come to the end of Mists of Pandaria rating. So how did priest healing fare compared to other healers? Like, where did it end up? Where did it stack up, Derevka? How did it go for you guys?
We were in a fairly decent place, I guess you would say.
Fairly decent. Yeah.
Fairly decent. No,
Nice.
I mean, obviously the pink elephant in the room is discipline's strength, and to a point where it became ridiculous, right? And I think people tend to forget how both Holy and Disc started and then kind of developed. And I don't mean to jump all over the patch notes, the show notes, over what we're kind of planning on talking about. But overall, priests have always been strong, minus a couple, even just historically, but even beyond this expansion, we've always had, for the most part, minus a couple of tiers, strength in either Holy or Discipline, bouncing between the two. But obviously, Disc was the strongest. It was the golden child this expansion.
Yeah. And then how from like a guild leader perspective with you and Echoes, Draco, how did it all pan out for you? Like, did you just like stack your own kind versus other healers? How did it work out for you guys?
We would have if we'd had any more priests, but
Oh, okay.
we haven't actually found any great ones that stuck along, so that's why I ended up playing one. But generally, Disc have been so immensely powerful on progress due to the absorb mechanics they bring that we would probably have used 2, but using 3 would start to kind of diminish the value of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So, okay. And so was there a good balance at any point during the expansion between them all, and then just like Disc just like skyrocketed past it, or was it just always Disc from the beginning?
Well, Disc at the start was in a bad place until they buffed mechanics within the class. I mean, Disc at the start of any expansion generally tends to lag behind due to how gear dependent and secondary stat dependent Disc is, because if you're not getting enough crits, you're not reliably creating Divine Aegis, therefore your whole absorb mechanic kind of starts to fall apart a little bit. First tier Disc was strong only due to the fact that Spirit Shell lined up with almost every single boss ability. Every big bad boss ability pretty much was a 60-second cooldown or a little bit longer, so you could just Spirit Shell, absorb the raid, and then let it happen. They tried to address that by nerfing the duration on Spirit Shell, but by the time that they did that, you had enough innate crit that you switched from Spirit Shell being your bread and butter to POH DA creation, and then level 90 abilities, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's kind of where it was as far as from a balance perspective. I think on the other end of the spectrum, you had like Resto Druids that kind of got not in nearly as good of a place as
No,
as
they
Disc
definitely
did,
I heard
but
you checking yourself there.
Yeah.
I did check myself a little bit. I love Oxy to death. Oxy's our resto druid.
Yeah.
But you can just hear how dejected he gets when both our Disc Priest and both of our Paladins are in raid together.
Yep. And how happy the other healers get when some of you guys are gone.
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
true.
Like if I have a work trip, or I think we talked about this yesterday, there was a heroic garage attempt. First Iron Star was getting ready to be launched. Our other Disc Priest disconnects, and someone missed the stun on the ad, so I got squished and didn't have my Spirit Shell or Divine Star out onto people. And then Dayani, who's our resto shaman, just goes, "Yes, my Ascendance is gonna heal things."
I remember that. That was the poll where you said all of your cooldowns were out of line, and every other healer was like, "Yes, this is so much fun."
I'm doing my job. Finally.
Yeah.
Well, what about you though, Draco? Anything else on that? How did your other healers and you commingle throughout Mists?
I mean, generally, Disc was not out of line until we started getting late into Throne of Thunder. It was useful during progress due to the 1 minute cooldown on Spirit Shell and lining up with everything, and the fact that absorption mechanics this expansion has been extremely strong. But it wasn't out of line until we started getting to such high amount of crits we could reliably spread Divine Aegis on everything at once. So up until Throne of Thunder progress was over, I'd say it stacked up fairly well against other healers, but you had things like Mistweavers who were actually extremely strong that tier and might have even been ahead of Disc. But obviously that's no longer the case because we scale better with gear in general because of our crits, so during Siege of Orgrimmar we've kind of been just wrecking shit.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
that's
Little.
one. Drink.
Just a little.
Oh, that's a drink. Your guild is poor echoes. Oh no.
You'll have to explain the joke to me. I missed this.
Oh, Echoes is doing a drinking game for
Every time
for
Draco swears.
Yeah.
Oh, every time he swears. I see. So we have another one here that we're going to have to be careful of. I see.
Yes. I don't think there's anything in the show notes that will bring up the aforementioned Final Boss drinking game, so I think we're okay. We'll be okay. But
Well, let's just move along then, because you did say that you talked a lot about Disc, and Disc is definitely the spec that we always see in Raid and that we hear a whole lot about. I mean, have you guys experimented with Holy? Were you using Holy at all recently? How did Holy go over the expansion?
Do you want to know July?
they're both like,
I like Holy. It feels more fluid, particularly kind of going from the Divine Insight, POH Divine Insight proc, and then getting your kind of Prayer of Mending that got turned into a chain heal. It just has a good fluid feel. I know it's not really the best descriptor, but it just feels good to kind of play and kind of link those spells together. But the long and short of it is that Holy is a reactionary healer, much like Druids and Mistweavers to a point. And Absorbs being so powerful just got really just completely overshadowed. And Holy didn't scale quite as well as Dis did with secondary stats, crit specifically. So you kind of fell a little bit behind in that regard. You also, I think to a point, had the whole flavor of the month problem with Discipline. You had a lot of people playing Disc because they were supposed to play Disc. Is Holy able to do every piece of content? Yeah. Is it the best answer? If you only had one priest and that priest wasn't Discipline and they were playing Holy, I would say that's probably not the best choice. But if you had two and one was Holy, one was Disc, they can certainly work well together, allowing the Holy Priest to kind of clean up the mess that the Disc Priest wasn't able to absorb. But standalone, if you had a 25-man at least, and you had one priest, and that was Holy, it's not really going to fit the niche that's necessarily needed and probably balanced around at this point.
I see.
I mean, Holy is good, but it has shortcomings. It has definite shortcomings. And a lot of it really is just not having an Absorb in the world of Absorbs right now. I mean, Absorbs are king. That's the problem.
Effective HP. It's effective HP. It's better to make damage not happen than to react to it after it does. That's just how math works. But what about
how about
go
you,
ahead.
Draco? Do you feel the same way about Holy? Since you were the only priest in your guild, then I know that Derevka has experimented a little bit with Holy, if I remember right. You
I
played
did
sometimes.
Holy DPS last week.
That's right. So you did.
And I
Well,
out DPS'd a trial. That was bad.
Oh, but I mean, like, since we have two priests, we can be a little bit more flexible. But since you've
Right.
been the only priest in your guild, have you pretty much just been disc all the time then, or
Someone said in chat, Holy, not even once.
not
There's-
even once?
Wow.
No. Like, while Holy might be a good spec to play, I can't comment too much on that because I haven't really played it in a rate setting. But generally, Holy fills the same niche as Mistweaver, Resto Shaman, and Resto Druid does. Even the rate cooldown that Holy brings is a carbon copy of Tranquility's. And in a raid where you have so many extra healing cooldowns and so many healers that's gonna end up being throughput healers anyway, you want the one healer that's actually fully absorb based to like be absorb based and not run around playing around as just another throughput healer.
I see.
Yeah.
So you pretty much have never rated as Holy this expansion?
No.
No. Wow.
I mean, that says something in itself. That's
Exactly.
the answer that I expected, but it's kind of sad to hear.
You can do it. That's the problem, is you can do it. Like, you don't have to. I think it's one of the things that's interesting with Priest is because you have two healing specs. No other healing class has the ability to do that. So you can kind of either play the one you prefer, right? Or play the one that the fight demands or the raid demands. And again, to beat the dead horse, it's absorbs of an effective HP have been just so powerful. And if you only have one, there's no need to bring the other. If you have a Resto Shaman, a Druid, or a Mistweaver.
Yeah.
I see. Well, that's an interesting point that you made there, Draco, with regard to the Holy Priest filling the same niche as a bunch of other healers, whereas Disc Priests kind of are their own niche that your raid wants. And I know, Derevka, you said something about how there's a... was it a flavor of the month problem that you called it, or just
Kind of, yeah.
that everybody else plays Disc, so priests who are debating which spec to play are going to gravitate towards Disc? Is that fair?
I think that's a fair point. Because that's what you're seeing, right? People tend, if you're going to pick up a class you haven't done, you're going to look at what people are playing, and the number of holy priests that are actually playing is such a small percentage. I'm not going to bother making up a stat. I'm sure there's a website that has a stat, but I would imagine it's in the vast, vast minority, and there's a reason for that.
Now, is there anything that Holy really excels at that, people are missing in a raid, or not really anything? I mean, are they great at challenge modes or proving grounds, or is there any reason to spec it?
Arena.
I saw that in chat. I saw that people were like, Holy goes into PvP. So
It's weird that it's a reverse now, right?
yeah, because he used to always be.
used to be the PvP class.
Yeah. Huh.
A holy priest can effectively lock down a target for an exceptional long period of time between using Chastise, their own fear, and then Scyfiend, and just kind of just chain CC them and then wait for the other target to die. But, I mean, Holy has places where it fits well, one versus the other, and then we'll talk about this a little bit, but the big issue is Disc can get in front of damage, and if it's at a fight where you can't have that opportunity to get in front of it, and it's more of a sustained fight. I think we talked about this last time I was here, was Raden. Raden Phase 2 is just constant damage. Not Raden. The last guy.
Garrosh?
No. Was it Raden?
Lei Shen?
Lei
Lei
Shen?
Shen?
Was
What?
it
Raden
Raden
is
was
the
the
last
last
guy.
guy, but
What
the
tier are you talking
heroic,
about?
the heroic only one. Oh my
Raden.
god.
You're right.
Raden. Yeah, I was right. Okay, I'm not
You're
crazy.
right, though. You're right.
You're right. No,
It's been
like
so long.
Disc
Yeah.
does well if it can get in front of damage. So Phase 2 Raden is a great example of not being able to get in front of it. It's just constant. So you're not giving Discs quite as much of an advantage to get in front of the damage before it happens and kind of get that head start. Think of damage as getting through a door at a very busy building. If Disc basically gets to the front of the line first, they're going to get through the door first. Whereas Holy can kind of just go through if that isn't blocked up at the front. So that's the issue, is that constant damage will prevent Disc from getting out in front. And basically forcing you to overheal. Same thing with Sulong. Sulong Night Phase, constant damage. Holy did very well during that.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
And you kind of commented on how you wonder how your mastery is going to work. Just a little bit of Draenor talk here. If everyone's going to be sub 100% all the time, quote unquote, right? That's the healing model in the future. Right. Do you think that Holy might just be better overall in the future? Is that what you were thinking about?
I think,
or?
Yeah. I mean, Echo of Light, which is Holy's mastery,
yeah,
will effectively be an additional X percentage heal. And if we're going to be living in a world where you're going to be expected to be under 100% much more often, that Echo of Light is going to become an effective heal, whereas in current model, it's much more of an overheal and more of a padding. So you're going to basically, if I heal you for 100,000, it's going to heal for an additional 20%. Right now, that 20,000 extra heal may only 5,000 of it might be effective, but in Draenor, if it's going to be not nearly as much, that whole extra 20,000 could very well be an effective heal because it's such a short period of time.
That's true, yeah.
So I do think Echo is going to be a much stronger mastery in a sub 100% HP environment because it's going to be much more likely to heal effectively than right now it's overheal. So I think that's going to be something that they may need to actually watch. Because from a stat level, if we're going to be under 100% as often as they're suggesting, mastery is going to be flat out king for Holy, if that's going to be the case. Because it's just free healing. Why wouldn't you take it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That sounds pretty good. Anything else on that little bit of topic before I move us along here? I had on here, I want to know, I guess, where was the breaking point that discipline really became as overpowered as possible? Like, why are absorbs and effective HP just so good in Mists of Pandaria? Like, Draco, what did you see? If you're the only disc priest in your raid, like, did you really see a huge difference when you started doing disc for echoes?
I mean, it started in Throne of Thunder. Basically, during Tier 14, they made the change to disc mastery that absorbs would come from all your critical heals rather than just from like your prayer of healing and I think a few other spells that I don't recall. Okay. But at that point they made it so the more crit we'd have, the more absorbs we'd get out and the better coverage of the rate we could get. And during Throne of Thunder progress we started getting into so high gear levels and we could reliably cover the entire rate. So despite them nerfing Spiritual's duration, so we couldn't really keep coverage of them up with that, our level 90 talents along with just normal healing started to make up for the loss we had in Spiritual. And even though they said that they'd fix all the mechanics that lined up perfectly with Spiritual for Throne of Thunder, they didn't. Like, they fixed it by nerfing the duration instead of making the abilities happen more infrequently or more frequently.
Right, and that was 5.2. 5.2 was the change where instead of all healers right now, critical heals minus discipline, just do a 200% heal. So if I healed for 50, I would then crit at 100, right? Whereas for disc, it used to then also do that and then take 30% of the heal and apply that as a divine Aegis. What they decided to do was, okay, this is getting a little out of hand. Let's make it you heal for 50 and then you get a bubble for 50. And then you add your mastery component to it, and it just kind of just, at that point, crit became like, yep, this is going to be the scaling secondary stat. Stack it on everything you possibly can, gem for it. It's at that point it became more powerful than intellect from a stat weight perspective, almost doubly.
Yeah. Grab trinkets that proc crit. What is that trinket that you use? That is, don't you use a tank trinket these days?
I had been. Well, it's more just a fun play thing. I haven't legitimately.
Yeah.
So there's Curse of Hubris, which is the heroic garage trinket. And it allows you, unlike most of the other crit trinkets, like the one from the Timeless Isle, which is Yulan's Bite, that's a proc for crit, which is great, but you had no control over it. Whereas Curse of Hubris, you basically get an on-use 15% bonus. So right now, if I have my set bonus, which gives me scaling crit based on the number of evangelism stacks, plus the Curse of Hubris, I can get up into the mid-80s from a percentage crit chance, which basically is hit those buttons, hit that, and then hit your level 90 ability and just throw Divine Aegis on everything in the raid.
Does the roll system for spells still work at that rate? Because like I know you can only
roll like with 2 L's or with an E.
with 2 L's, because I know for melee you can't get too much crit. Like the system just won't let you crit all the time. But with spells, can you literally just get that high and you can just crit everything? Is that just fine?
I mean, great example was the DPS trinket off of Lei Shen gave you 100% crit, and you literally can crit like you. Disc Priest had that, and you had like a very brief window where you could just Halo and literally put a DA on everybody.
The whole raid, yeah.
Literally, yeah. I mean, it would crit. I mean,
that's wild.
It's really loud on if you have combat text showing.
Sure.
You basically get big green numbers everywhere. But
yeah. Huh. That's pretty wild. I guess that brings us right into the next topic then. Thanks. It's like a segue. It's like you've done this before, Derevka. Nice.
I do what I can. I wasn't even reading.
You want to read? No.
We moving on to the next topic, Bay?
Yeah. Again, let's just touch on this lightly, because I don't want people to freak out that we're talking about this again. But yes, go for it, Anna. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, let's talk about some smart heals.
Oh no!
Our favorite topic. That is where you wanted to go with this, right? Yes. Yeah. Let's talk. I mean, not just to only talk about the legendary cloak, but I know smart heals have been kind of a very controversial topic these days, almost as controversial as absorbs. The general state of affairs is that they have gotten too prolific. They're taking care of too much of the healing. And I'd like to get a feel for how you guys think about it, how it kind of affects how you play. Do you find it boring? Do you agree that there are too many smart heals these days? And let's talk to you first, Draco.
I do agree that there's far too many smart heals at the moment. There's people complaining that Disc is too powerful because of absorption, because they're at the top of the meters. And while it's true that their absorbs could through first, they have to realize that the issue isn't in the absorbs themselves. It's in the fact that everything's smart healing. If Disc wasn't getting to it first with absorbs, then Resto Shamans with their constant chain heals and healing range would, or Resto Druids with wild growth. It's like all of the damage that you have taking away on people get caught up by smart healing, which means that you just mindlessly spam whatever smart heal you have until real damage suddenly happens once a minute, and then you start healing maybe for 10 seconds, and then you're back to spamming your smart heal because it's the most efficient way to keep everyone alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Smite was more expensive, it would be a little bit different of a story. I mean, right now, Disc has kind of two ways that it can go about healing as a filler. They can use either Smite as a filler, or if they have the mana regen to support it, they can use Prayer of Healing as a filler and just kind of DA pad, at lack of a better word, and just pad the raid with Divine Aegis. But generally speaking, you can kind of just smite your way to victory, particularly on 10-man, because it's a smaller subset of people, and I'm getting off the same number of smites that I would be getting off of on a 25-man, so I'm more likely to hit anybody. But I think that the thing that's really tricky with smart healing is that it does feel like it takes away a certain kind of player skill cap from the game, because the game is selecting targets for you that are most grievously injured, which I believe is the current language that's being used within smart heals. And I think in Draenor, when those now aforementioned smart heals will just heal any target that has had damage, not necessarily the most grievously, you'll see that start to switch a little bit back to spell selection is going to be the key there. I think removing smite healing and smart healing, I know we tend to use them a little bit interchangeably, at least from a Disc Priest perspective, because that is our smart heal, is atonement.
Yeah.
On Holy side, that's basically just Circle of Healing and your Sanctuary, and then obviously Divine Hymn tends to prefer as well. To be fair, Prayer of Mending has a pseudo-smart component. It just bounces to an injured target. But I think also COH is just really weak as is, which also falls into why Disc tends to be a little bit better. But Smart Healing, there's just no... Use it on cooldown, it'll heal the appropriate targets that it needs to. There's no real selection necessary. And I think nobody really likes that. I mean, Draco, you probably do this too, but you kind of check out some fights and you just mash your smite button and then, the boss is dead, okay, move on to the next trash pack. At least now, right, when you're out gearing content. But it happens.
Pretty much. There's nothing to think about.
And that's just not a good place for healing to be. That just can't be a good... I mean, and in fights like when Ian said it on the show last week when we interviewed Ian Hazacostas, is that like Thok had to exist, and that in a 1.5 second GCD, when the raid is taking 65% of their health and damage, overall, you still get topped off. Because so much is happening. And that just can't be a really healthy situation for healers as a whole right now. So too much of the game is doing your job for you, basically.
Right.
So, so in that same little regard, I wanted to bring up a little bit about the legendary cloak, because we talked about it before, like early in its interim on all the healing episodes. But now, I know we talked about this when we were setting up the show behind the scenes. I know you had some things to talk about the legendary cloak, the two of you. So, and how it's actually not that bad for discipline, or people just look at it and like, oh, the stats are better, but that's how it is. But is there better ways to make use of it for discipline? And maybe if you want to touch on Holy too, Derevka?
Yeah, I mean, people got too caught up in the stats behind it, being like, oh, Gina Kang doesn't have critical strike, therefore it's horrible for us, and the RPPM isn't all that great. Well, technically, Discipline's RPPM is the highest out of all of them. It has the highest proc rate out of all the healers, and that's part and parcel because we're less likely to overheal. And we talked about this, I think, last time, is that the Legendary Cloak is basically overheal protection, and Discipline has a lot of innate overheal protection by nature of absorbs. But one of the things I think a lot of people forget about is, and when they're evaluating which is a better cloak for me to use, is they look at just what shows up on the basic static log. Okay, well, if I use Gina Kang, here is the amount that was actually transferred, and it's only 3% or only 2% of my effective healing was the transferred amount. And they then evaluate, look at how much damage I did with the DPS cloak instead. Yeah. Okay, it's a little disingenuous because you're looking at percentages of very vastly different numbers, like 2% of one versus 15% of another number. If they're not based off the same number, it's an irrelevant percentage to evaluate, to a point. Also, the other point is Gina Kang gives you a 5% healing buff. Now, it's a little bit tricky to see this in logs, but it's doable. You have to do several different iterations of running log pins. But if you're healing for more, your DAs are going to be larger, and the DAs will actually stay on the target or refresh on a target longer than the innate buff itself. Okay. So if the buff for Gina Kang is 10 seconds, but in the 9th second I crit someone with a Prayer of Healing, that Prayer of Healing is now 5% larger, therefore my DA is going to be 5% larger on that target, outlasting the proc bonus. Whereas if a Holy Priest did it, that might have been 100% overheal, and who cares? Or didn't transfer to anybody because nobody was injured. Whereas, it's all about, look, you're an Absorb class. Leverage every increase to your healing that you can, because that's now going to be just a bigger shield. People forget about that, and it's because it's difficult to actually track it down in Warcraft logs or World of Logs. You actually have to do several different iterations and then try to back into which DAs were actually the buffed DAs, and were those particular DAs actually consumed or not.
You had to put like 8 different filters to find and track this stuff.
It's doable. It was I should have probably put it together, but I didn't for the show. But there's 7 pins you have to put in Warcraft logs to get a number, and then you have to get the number and then back in, like, subtract it out, the numbers that are the damage dealt versus damage received.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's not worth really doing it. So long and short of it, the cloak is not bad.
No.
That's the takeaway. The cloak's not bad. The cloak's not bad. The damage you're dealing is background noise that you're dealing with the DPS cloak.
So not worth it. So just use the...
Not necessarily. No? I mean, if you want to parse and you want to get a DPS parse as a healer, throw it on. By all means, go ahead and do it. If you're on a tight enrage timer, throw it on. No hurt, no harm.
What about you, Draco? Did you always use the healing cloak, or did you go to the DPS cloak too? What was your?
I always used the DPS cloak because we were progressing at a rate that had us beating up against the enrage timers. And when healing, we usually would use a setup that would be like 4 throughput healers, or, well, that includes paladins, then me as a disc, and usually the 4 healers would be able to manage the encounter themselves, while I could just go full out DPS, and if something got rough, I could switch instantly from DPS to healing. But until then, I made more use of being the constant stream of smart heals that just pumped into the lowest targets so no one would die. And all the other healing I did, like from cloak procs and such, would be largely irrelevant, while enrage timers such as on Malkorok were beaten within like a few seconds. So any DPS we could squeeze out would be good.
Yeah, that's different. I guess that's true too. I mean, there's definitely a between the difference, like where something wicked and crisp rate, like we're around like the mid to high 30s in the U.S., right, or low 30s for me because we're terrible. We have more gear by the time we get to those situations, so people usually maximize for survivability or situational things or like cooldown rotations and stuff. So I sure with you guys at the level you're at with Echoes, you do have to find all the extra numbers for damage. So that makes sense though. I mean, that's two sides of the same coin for how you can handle the legendary cloaks. So yeah. But I guess on that same token too, are you both looking forward to the changes coming in Warlords without the smart heals being most injured, but just like just an injured person in general, with removing a whole lot of that fluff? Obviously the legendary cloak will be gone. It won't scale. They'll probably make it, it doesn't work past level, 90 or whatever. So are you guys both looking forward to how that's going to work? Draco, what do you think?
I'm looking forward to it. Like, there's still not a lot that has been said exactly about how they're gonna they have basically said that they're gonna do almost the same that they did for Cataclysm, but they don't want us as tight on mana, and they want us to move around less. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out, but there's less smart healing is gonna be good for the game, at least in terms of teaching people not to stand in stuff and avoid stuff in general.
Yeah.
Because they're not just going to get caught up by all the random healing going around. They're going to die.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it was funny. We talked about this before on past shows, that we wonder if there's going to be more just damage that will just wreck your day in Warlords, so it really raises your awareness as a player to not just stand in things. Because right now, I admit it myself, I stand in all the poop and all the fire because healers need something to do right now. And if I don't, then they don't have anything to do.
Right.
And I'm not going to die.
Overgeared.
Yeah, well,
they're also overgeared for it. That's also part of it. You tried pulling that the first time through Siege of Orgrimmar, all your heroes would not just be looking for something to do, they'd be yelling at you for standing in the poop.
Yeah, no, that's the flip side, of course. But because healing right now and the way that it works, it lends itself to that style. I think that even in Warlords, it shouldn't be that bad at the end of the expansion. And if they figure it out to really give healers that choice, and then every healer doesn't do everything he needs to do with one button, then we'll have to see.
Well, it makes spell selection that much more relevant, and also target selection that much more relevant. Like, if we're going to be doing more true single target,
such a bad word, yeah.
It is a bad word at this point, right? But it forces you to select the target. It forces you to select the spell that you're using. I mean, simply put, you basically have your inefficient spell and your efficient spell. One's fast, one's slow. The question you have to be asking yourself fairly instantaneously is, do I need the urgency of the speed and inefficiency, or can I just heal the person and let them get healed by the slower spell? Right. And I think that's much more engaging gameplay. Almost, to a point, almost harkens back to the 5-second rule, where you were like cancel casting and deciding, okay, which rank of this spell am I actually going to cast on this target? And if I don't need to actually cast it, I'll cancel cast and get my 5-second rule regen starting to kick in. I think while I don't think we want to go back to that type of style healing, it definitely harkens to that, because it forces the player to have a certain amount of control over what they're doing. And do I need to target this person? Can I use my filler spell and do something else instead? Is renew going to be a bigger part of it, because I can now cast a more efficient, slower heal over time, or do I need to cast a greater? Oh, it's not called greater heal anymore. Or heal. There is no regular heal. There's nothing greater than itself. So do I cast heal on it now? I think that's a little bit more of an engaging gameplay, because it's allowing the player to make a conscious decision. And I think Resto Druids are a great example of their model kind of already fits that. Beyond just rejuve spamming, they have to, okay, if I'm going to put this on, I'm going to heal a target to keep my
Life Bloom.
harmony or life bloom or harmony buff up. Who do I have to activate that besides just using my wild growth button? I mean,
you need to have rejuvenation up in order to be able to use Swiftmen to instantly heal them, so you need a good coverage.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be a good thing. I just think where I think people are going to struggle is not just the healers, but the DPS are going to need to also be very much aware of, oh my god, I'm at 70% health.
Sure.
70% is not going to kill you. Unless there's a boss ability like... I think it'll be interesting to see if we have abilities like Crackle. Remember that from Nefarian 2.0, right? Like that was okay, everyone has to be topped up before Crackle hits. That's not necessarily a bad thing in Draenor if that happens under the new damage model and the healing model, because if you have time to prepare for that, that's fine. But if it's a damage, Crackle, like you're dead. That's not going to happen.
Yep.
There's not going to be a insta kill if you're not immediately topped off within a short window of time. Like that might happen. That may be some of the boss mechanics, and the healers have to have 5-10 seconds of inefficient healing to make sure everyone's prepared. But I don't think it's going to be the status quo. Sorry. Go.
It might even be a more interesting boss mechanic in the new Warlords scheme of things. I mean, like right now, I can't see that being a very interesting boss mechanic because people are topped off all the time. I mean, how often do you have to cast lots and lots of inefficient heals to top people off? I guess maybe on Fox sometimes, or...
Yeah, maybe if they have, if they're way out, if they're kiting and they got kited twice in a row or something. I mean, the thing that I find always interesting, and it happened actually on our last raid, Anna, someone's like, oh, how'd you die? And they're like, oh, I bled out. And I was like, no, you didn't. There's no way you bled. Like there's no way you bled out. Like, something happened.
Yeah.
And it's oh, no, you stood in a mutate. That's what it was. There's that mutate that happened right there. You had Scorpion and mutate hit, and that was the end of it. Yeah.
It's weird, too. I remember back, you brought up the Nefarian Crackle stuff, and I remember back, I've been playing this game since, launch, that a lot of times you had to even like pay attention to your own health and do things for yourself, like bandage. Oh my gosh, bandage, or use your own self heals, or your damage mitigation to stop incoming and then like prepare to be healed back up by your healers. Like you had to actually care more about just hitting your buttons to do damage. There was a little extra side of it, at least from a DPS standpoint. But that's sort of like gone now. I don't think the last time I ever cared. I mean, maybe progressing in Throne of Thunder, I put down Healing Rains on Megara. Heroic.
You did it because you were an enhancement shaman.
And it was broken! Yes. Of course, that was why. But that's there's nothing in that anymore. I think that kind of takes away from a lot of the other aspects of just being a DPS, is caring about your own well-being. As much as it is the healer's job to play whack-a-mole on grid, it's still your job to not make sure you don't get insta-gibbed or take stupid damage. That's the healthy point to play the game, right? So I think that they've lost a little bit of that with how Mists has definitely grown. So I wonder if a lot of that's going to come back. And I've heard on the bandage topic, just randomly, we're talking about healing in the first place, have they ever confirmed anything being changed with it yet to be like it's an insta-cast, it's like a slow heal over time kind of deal, and it doesn't work on any other cooldown? Like it's not tied to healing potion or health stone? Because right now they're useless. Right? I wonder. Yeah. They need to do something with bandage. They might remove it entirely, but I'm not sure. We'll see.
No.
We will see. But I guess that brings us to our first question. Our first Q&A comes in here. And that's sort of on the topic we were just bringing up right now. So this comes in from Keldark, who's in chat right now on Twitter. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts towards atonement? Is it a mindless way to heal, and would it be better if it was just removed from the game? I'll go with Draco first on this one.
It is a mindless way to heal at the moment, and it could be made a lot better by, for example, making things like Archangel, which is tied into Atonement, a longer cooldown and a better impact on our healing. At the moment, we're balanced around having as high an uptime as we possibly can on Archangel. So if you were to like balance Atonement with needing to do this much Atonement, like 10 hits of Atonement in order to get your Archangel up, and you'd have a minute's cooldown on Archangel, then you'd have a choice, because you could start loading up your Atonement, you could get your Archangel for when the damage gets rough, and then do your real AoE healing during that. But as it is at the moment, it's just mindless spam, just Atonement, Archangel on cooldown, nothing else. I'm not sure I'd want it removed, but I definitely want it more complicated than it is now.
Yeah, there's no other iteration. You don't do anything else with it. That's how simple it is. That sounds pretty cruise control.
It's pretty much yes.
Yeah. What do you think, Derevka? Keep it, remove it, scrap it.
Well, it needs to stay. It's a core mechanic.
Right.
I think perhaps the damage to healing conversion probably could use some balancing. It's supposed to be very similar to fist weaving, at least in the current model, not in the whole crane stance model in Warlords. It's supposed to be similar, but it's simply not. Like, you cannot solely fist weave and heal as well as a Disc Priest could solely atonement healing the entire time. And it's a core mechanic in the sense that it's tied to Archangel. Like, you need to cast Smite to gain Evangelism, to then consume those Evangelism stacks to get Archangel. And I think it is mindless. I think a lot of the mindless healing is part and parcel of it being more powerful in 10-man from a raw healing done. And then more people just using it. Like, you can just basically cruise control. Like, I mean, I've done that. I fully admit I have just done fights and been half emailing or paying bills or whatnot and just hitting my offensive penance, Holy Fire on cooldown, Smite, activate Archangel every 30 seconds, and just go on. And it's just kind of the way that we've been handling it. Removing it, I think, is a bit too far, though. It's too core of a mechanic at this point. It'd be like removing Chakra, as much as I hate Chakra.
Yeah. I've seen you on Twitter a little bit about that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Chakra's awesome. But I feel like it's been around too long to be removed at this point. It's too core.
Yeah. Just like you need a little bit more iteration. I love that word.
Right. I think
what you do to attain that sort of healing.
Yeah. I mean, the smart heal adjustments, I think, are really going to address it.
Sure. You're
not going to be able to just solely atonement heal in Warlords, given the target selection that smart healing will have. So,
I mean, even at the moment during progress, you can't solely atonement heal. There will be moments where you'll have to prepare for damage with Spirit Shell, and you will have to spot heal with Power Word Shield and such. It's only during farm it's gotten this bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you almost feel that atonement healing through Smite should almost be more tied to smaller bursts with good efficiency and not be like something you can just literally fall back on all the time? I guess, because it just sounds like you can do it all the time. Does it sound
you can do it all the time. Well, because Smite's too efficient. Smite is exceptionally efficient. And this kind of parlays into some of the mana discussion that we were having. Is Smite is essentially Discipline's filler spell, because you can smart heal everybody. It's stupid cheap, and it does damage to the boss or the target, right? Or the ad, rather. Mm-hmm. Whereas Holy doesn't have that stupid, cheap, wicked effective spell. They either can POH spam and get Echoes of Light rolling on people. They could renew spam, which is awful because renew scaling, as far as from spell power, is awful, at least in the current model, and it's too short. Unless you're going to use pseudo monk playstyle and have this chakra dance with it, but no one really wants to do that in a 25-man world. But there's no real option, so Holy ends up being forced to be inefficient, which is kind of why that whole mana game ends up being a problem for Holy versus Disc. I don't know.
It's a weird place right now. We'll have to definitely see what comes out of Alpha when we finally get it, and get a lot more hands-on, sink our teeth into some Warlords.
Yeah, but long and short of it, it's all about the smart heal. Once that gets addressed, and it's still a problem, then I think we can revisit it. But Blizzard seems really confident that the smart heal adjustment is going to
help it along.
Help Atonement a bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move us along real quick, Anna.
I've got a question. I've got a question for you guys.
Yep.
Taking my turn here on this interview. I want to know from you guys what your favorite in Mists of Pandaria. Let's go with you first, Draco.
one of the constant damage ones. Will of the Emperor, Shixia, like one of those where there's constantly something to actually heal, where it feels like you had to triage your way through and keep the rate alive the entire time. Like Will of the Emperor, for example, it didn't really have any bursty moments of damage. It's just had constant damage, so you had to be able to manage your mana for 10 minutes and keep on healing at the expense of maybe letting some people drop down low, much like the method that they want to apply in Warlords of Draenor. Like, I still remember, like, our first kills had people hovering around 70% for a lot of the time, and then maybe topped off with a cooldown, and then we could relax a little for a few seconds, get some mana back, and then it was, again, down to 70%.
Okay. What about you, Derevka?
I bounce between both. Actually, I really liked Windlord. For whatever reason, I really liked Windlord. And I think it was because I was playing Disc almost exclusively at the time, due to the fact that Windlord had a lot of spell abilities that you needed to time Spirit Shell around. And I remember communicating with our other Disc priest and talking with her, being like, okay, I can use my Spirit Shell for this particular one, but it's not going to be off cooldown, so you can't use Spirit Shell on the first one. I'll use it for so you do 2 and 4, I'll do 1 and 3, just to kind of time it. And it just felt good being able to look at the boss encounter, figure out which cooldowns would line up with what, and then work with my partner at the time to figure out what's the best way to deal with it. And that it just felt really good. That fight just had a lot of core mechanics when you had to, okay, everyone has to soak this particular target. Wait, that's Windlord, right? Yeah.
Yep.
In phase
the
1.
one with the swords.
The swords, then the wind tunnel they had to run through.
Yeah, the wind tunnel.
Yeah. I mean, it just felt really good to kind of, okay, well, I can get the first soak target, and then if I got stunned or whatever, I had to, okay, well, I don't have Spirit Shell up, so heads up, or this is my barrier. It was a very cooldown focused fight, or at least for the strategy that we were using in Something Wicked. So working with my counterpart at that point, it was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Outside of that, Lei Shan is just the best fight ever created.
Oh god, there's the Lei Shan comment.
Everybody loves Lei Shan.
Just fall back on that if you don't think of something.
Well, it had the most you had personal accountability.
Yep.
And then you had incredible amounts of damage coming out.
Yep.
And then to a point you had the if one person screws up, the game's over, which no one really likes it. But it was a punitive fight. Everyone had to execute properly.
It was.
And that fight actually had you, Bay, you were talking about, like, thinking about your own survival and helping out healing and such. Like, during progress on Lei Shen, during the intermission phases where you split up into the small groups, we definitely had everyone, like, trying to minimize the damage. We had boomkins off healing and such. Like, everyone actually used abilities that they'd never used on encounters before, mainly because there was nothing to DPS, so they made better use of their time healing and such if they were boomkin. But it still touched a bit on, like, getting to use the entire toolkit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's definitely too many encounters in this expansion that have been up and down in that regard, where there's a lot to do and it's a lot of fun, and then there's like way too much to do and it's not fun, or there's like not enough to do and it's just like really boring and you just kind of go through the motions and you beat the boss. So, I mean, that's how it is, Ben. I mean, a whole lot of things were tested out. I'm still looking forward to how the first 17 bosses in Draenor are going to be. But other encounters, how about, what was your least favorite encounter to heal in Mists of Pandaria? And we'll go to you first on this one, Derevka.
I only can pick one?
Only one. Or
Only
a couple,
one.
I don't care, whatever. Least favorites.
I want to delete all the things.
All the things that you don't get sat on.
All the things I don't get sat on currently. I can't put my finger on it as to why. I just hate Paragon so much. I don't have a good reason. I just don't like it. But if I had to give one with a good reason, is I just don't like spoils. I don't like spoils. It doesn't feel you like it. You only like it because you're 4-piece. Don't even get me started.
Fight. I love that fight. Chat's over here like, oh, you know, Draco likes the fights that he can parse on, and I'm like, I like the fights that I can parse on too.
Yeah, exactly. What the heck? There's nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, Derevka, please go on.
It doesn't feel good.
Spoils.
I don't like spoils. One, because it feels like I'm in a 10-man, and I don't raid 10-man. I raid 25, and I don't like that whole. The whole family has to be together. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
No, no, it just doesn't feel good. it feels like a giant trash pack because that's what it is. Like there's no penultimate thing that happens. The only part of that fight that's fun is that you get to aim the healer staff when you get the healer buff and try to hit everybody and all the mobs that are in the way. Outside of that, I feel like it's just the longest trash pack between the last boss and Thok. That's it.
That's it? Okay.
That's it.
Draco, what about you? Least favorite?
Malkorok.
Oh, you don't like that?
No, I don't like that.
Huh.
I might if I wanted to play Holy, but the absorbs on Malkorok are still extremely useful, so I was disc for that. The issue is that almost the entire toolkit of disc gets thrown out. Like, try and heal Malkorok without Atonement, see where that leaves you. We can't just remove Atonement, because it's like running around trying to grade a heal and power word shield everyone without the shields. I mean, it's still a much better survivability boost than getting a 5th Trooper healer to have a disc running around doing that, but it's so annoying not being able to use Atonement efficiently in that fight.
Yeah.
It is.
Our resident Final Boss crew member, Emily, also says in chat, I hate Malkorok as well, so you have some extra support on that one. I don't think anyone really enjoyed that fight unless you were melee DPS, because you just tunneled. It was the closest thing to patch.
Maybe a Resto Shaman.
Oh, Resto Shaman? To drop that healing rain, top them meter.
They're bursting more than 1 million healing at the start because they just tried to get the shields up.
Yeah, that's true.
The only part that's good about Malkorok is that Halo is amazing.
Yeah.
Halo.
Oh yeah, somebody literally just said that in chat. Halo on Malk GG.
Halo,
yeah,
on Malk GG. I see that now.
It just becomes all effective healing, and I think that's why Draco said Holy. Holy likes Malkorok because it's just all fake real healing, because it shows up on
fake
real healing because it shows up on the meters as effective healing because there's no overheal. It all just gets eaten, and it's fake. It actually is a real good way of showing, look, Holy actually does do good numbers. You just can't see it.
Oh, you
just can't. Yeah, you can't see them on any other fight.
If you give me a fight that will allow me to, I will show you how great Holy is.
That's
but
terrible.
You just can't see it.
That's not a very good place for a spec to be either.
No. The only downside, though, is like a couple of your abilities just simply won't work on Malkorok. Like, Lightwell won't work on Malkorok because you don't get low enough for it to do anything.
Prayer of Mending won't bounce because they aren't taking any damage.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
Prayer of Healing is annoying as hell to get to hit an entire group.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah.
You have little sets of 2 and everyone's off on their own.
Yep.
Yeah, just shield, shield, shield.
Yep. Oh, time to soak. Shield the soakers.
Yeah, that's true. That's what it was like.
And just use level 90 on cooldown. Run to the center of the room. Halo, run back to where you need to be.
Oh, my Melody did not like that. I managed to throw them up a few times.
Yeah.
Anna loves visual noise.
Yeah.
She just loves it.
It's wonderful.
Turn Halo into a pet.
What, Anna?
Yeah, turn Halo into a pet that halos every 10 seconds. You know, I love that. So is there any like specific mechanic that you can think of that you really enjoy healing, and like a mechanic that you really hate? Or
Rack. Sorry.
Everyone hated Rack.
Everyone hated Rack.
Hated Rack.
Yeah, of course.
Dispel. Hated. Mechanic-wise, I really don't like Gift of the Titans. Because I swear all I do is bloody dispel that entire... Because there was like our first 4 or 5 different kills. I got it every time. Every time. I had it the whole fight. And just was like, oh, but I wanted to do numbers, so nope. I had to dispel.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Derevka, always dispelling.
Always dispelling.
I got it all the time. And then I yelled at people to mass dispel on Thok. And then people didn't.
Yeah.
But it's one person.
One person. Don't know who that would be. Moving along. Draco, what do you think? Is there a specific mechanic, or not even like a mechanic that you can remember from a fight, but like a kind of damage pattern that's more fun or less fun?
Not really, to be honest. Like, I mean, maybe Paragons. Like, the entire mechanic of aim along with whirling was doing my head in during progression, because we only had one priest. So in order to pre-shield the Sogas, I'd either have to make the choice to keep casting and get caught in the whirling, or leave the entire group without a shield, because I had to cast Prayer of Healing. And if he charged through me during that, it's like, do I decide to let them die, or do I sit in this thing? That was
Yeah.
the most
So you
annoying
sat
thing
in
I
the
can
thing,
think
though.
of.
You sat in the thing.
Brutal.
Oh yeah, I sat in the
Is
thing.
that the thing? Yeah, there you go. All right.
Sacrificed yourself gloriously for the life
Fuck
of
no,
others.
I called for the other healers to heal me.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
He is the guild
Yeah,
leader,
those-
so that's they gotta keep him alive. Absolutely, gotta keep him.
Once
going.
they went parse, then they let you die and they'll battle res you.
Oh, unless they want to.
They do that. They do that sometimes.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. I'm going to take a quick couple of minutes here to talk to chat room about some awesome communities that are behind the scenes that you may not have heard of, or some other people on the internet that you should go check out that do help us out and we help them out. The first one up, of course, because the other one's down right now. Manaflask.com is a awesome community-driven news and spotlight-oriented column-based little community over here at manaflask.com. They just, I see Starum's got the top secret Blizzard project announcement to be revealed at BlizzCon. What could that be? But they do comment and community stuff. They do a lot of stuff with Method. I know that Suni had a bunch of healing blogs on here, like 37 of them. I have no idea. There's a whole bunch. Sparkos has some things on here. You can watch all of his Warlock tank gold challenge modes. God, what a man. They're all on here on manaflask.com. Of course, they regurgitate a bunch of the main stuff that comes out of Blizzard and things like that, but they also have a lot of their own columns and things. They're pretty neat stuff. You can go check them out if you need some extra World of Warcraft content to wet your whistle. Additionally, if you do want some lore in the World of Warcraft, you can go check out the Noble over here at Noble87 on the YouTubes. He does some Let's Plays and things of him playing World of Warcraft, and right now he's doing Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, but his bread and butter is lore videos in World of Warcraft, as long as Q&As as well with World of Warcraft. He just did a spoiler-free talk about war crimes. He's also posting his next video was going to be the big walkthrough, spoiler-ridden review of War Crimes, the new book by Christy Golden. So you can go check that out for him. And of course, you got the story of Terran Zoo on here, the story of Anvina, the story of Archimon, the story of Kil'jaeden, all this crazy stuff on here. You can go check him out. Again, it's Noble87 on the YouTubes as well. We're also on YouTube. Final Boss Wow on YouTube it's right below the link right now. You can just check down below if you want to check. We have 40 episodes before this one, all with after shows, almost all of them with after shows. We have our interview with Ian Hazacostas. We just sat down with Duck Sauce recently. We're almost done with every single class in the game, so if you have missed a class-based episode, go check them out. Both the main and the after shows are up there. We have our WoW Trivial Pursuit special. We had Elvine and Anna and me and Brutal and Alex and Laws, Fat Boss and Silver Latomi, and there's Nobble's Silly Face. This is a lot. This is 2 hours of us being terrible at World of Warcraft trivia. You can go check that out over there on YouTube. And it goes on and on and on. Elvine the Golden Aching Mage was on a while ago. There's Tickle with Elemental Shamans. There's Nobble back here. It keeps here. There's more. We have tons of episodes. Go check that out. We sat down with Fat Boss for last Halloween. And then, of course, everything else is on our website. All of our transcription stuff is on our website. Our amazing writer, Ponaria, is right there. Megan does all of our write-ups, and her huge write-up for the Blizzard interviews were amazing. And just so everyone knows, we do have a donate button right over here that does help us out if you do want to help support the show. And we have some kickbacks for you guys. Our bread and butter is we can give you guys some wristbands, which I have down here. We have awesome little screenshots of what the wristbands do look like. Those are not going away. However, I am sad to say, and also happy to say, that the custom crew t-shirts that you can order from us, they do cost $100 because it costs just about that to get the shirts to some of you guys, which have your name on the back of them and our Final Boss logo on the front if you want to have a crew t-shirt. Those are going away soon. At the end of this month, we are going to be making up a apparel shop with Designed by Humans, which will replace this kind of stuff. So you can get more Final Boss stuff, but the customization, which I handle personally, along with our art director, Leo, is going away. It's just too much stuff for us to handle. So if you do want to snag yourself a custom Final Boss t-shirt, do that before about the middle of May. Got about another week or 2 on that one before they'll go away. And then, of course, if you want to get stuff later on, you can wait for the Designed by Humans shop to open up. Well, tons of different styles of shirts and hoodies and phone cases and art prints and who knows what else. Crazy awesome stuff over there with DBH. So go check us out. All of our links are down below. of course. And that's enough about me jibber-jabbing. Let's talk a little bit more about priests and get into more of what we like to call the meat and taters of the show. And this opens up with a question. We just talked about it a little bit more. You guys ready for another question? Draco, Derevka, you ready?
Yep.
Question time.
Good to go.
They're correct.
Came in from Asunta on EU Twisting Nether. Looking forward to the changes in Warlords. Will Disc and Holy Priests have to relearn their class completely new, compared to other healers? Probably face a discipline, I would imagine, in this one, but what do you guys think about how much relearning you'll have to do with the new healer changes? Draco, what do you think?
I think it's going to be the same as every other expansion. You always have, like, lately Blizzard has been trying to find the correct healing model, and as they said themselves, they haven't really done that yet. So every single expansion we've gone into, they've tried something completely new lately.
Sure.
And I think it's going to be exactly the same again. All the other healers are also missing out or losing a lot of their abilities, like their movement, healing, and such. I think the one I've noticed the least changes with is Resto Shaman, but generally I don't think there's going to be more to learn for Disc than there is for the other healers, because the other healers are going to have to learn to use their DPS abilities during downtime too, apparently.
Yep. There are definitely some of that, mostly with... That's what they're trying to do with all the healers, is they'll have options when they're not healing all the time to still do something that is, helpful in multiple ways. So, like Resto Shamans get Lightning Bolt kind of stuff. So, yep.
You're totally baiting me on to get me all worked up over active mana regen.
I am. I'm not. What are we
Chakra.
talking about? Yeah.
No, I mean, I do think we are going to have to learn a little. I mean, one of the things, we still know very little. I mean, like, they've really have trickled out information, and we've only kind of got this, like, 10,000-foot view of what they kind of envision healing will be like. I think one of the things that I'm curious about is Holy Nova for Discipline, if that's still going to be positionally based, if it's going to emanate from you, that will possibly require some learning on how to be able to, okay, is this now a safe time for me to move and run around and flail my arms and do Holy Nova a la Firefighter from back in Old War.
Right,
the only time you even used Holy Nova in a practical application was Firefighter. I think that'll be interesting to learn. I mean, having to get over leaning on smart heals quite as much, being able to just chain cast POH as much, and actually having to make a little bit more of an intelligent decision. That's something that every healer is going to have to deal with. It's not necessarily isolated just to Disc and Holy. There are mechanics that, again, I think the active regen is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see how mandatory that will feel. Or if it's more of a, well, you have nothing else to do, why not use your active mana regen? I think it'll be interesting to see where that actually lands.
Yeah.
I mean, Disc, I think, actually is in a very interesting place with the active regen, because it's tied to penance, and it forces you, okay, do you use penance offensively and only get mana back and not atonement heal with it anymore? Because remember, penance will no longer trigger atonement, while or you can heal with it directly. You have to make that choice, and you have to wait the cooldown for the spell to come off to be able to use it. Holy, on the other hand, has to change their entire chakra stance to be able to do active regen. You can always switch back to one of the other two healing stances if you prefer, but I think it's a little bit more of a choice than using penance offensively or defensively. It's much more of a committed choice to make. And also, more importantly, a lot of these regen talents, minus the druid one, require a target. Like, you need a target to be able to damage, to be able to regen, and if a target is out, that target is probably also dealing damage to your tank.
Yeah.
So the question is when is that going to actually come into play? Yep. So I think the active regen is an interesting concept. I think we'll probably see a little bit more iterations of it before it's fully fleshed out.
Of course.
If I were to have my druthers, I would not have it tied to chakra. I would probably remove chakra chastise as an overall, but that's just me not liking chakra. I just don't.
Does not like chakra.
You not liking chakra?
They want chakra to be a choice. They want it to be. There needs to be a reason for you to be in a stance, and that reason needs to be a meaningful one and have purpose over time. They don't want you just to camp in a single stance. I don't think that they're there yet. I think that we've been seeing a lot of changes with Chakra. Basically removing the baseline percentage heal boost is a step in the right direction, and I'm hopeful that the number of iterations we're seeing and kind of the path they're going down means that, we kind of recognize that it's not working in the manner that we want to. It doesn't feel good, and I think that's a very difficult word to use. How players feel about a talent is, one, important, but two, it's exceptionally subjective.
Yeah.
And people tend to be like, oh, this is a boring play style. Well, boring for you. I think the real question is how is that talent perceived? And I know Celestalon's made several comments on they want abilities to feel like it's giving you player power, not being a albatross around your neck, really. And that's kind of how Chakra felt, and we're getting kind of away from that, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, we'll definitely see.
We'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. Otherwise, I'll smack someone. I don't know.
You'll smack someone.
I'll hit someone. Whoever gets
you will. You definitely will.
Yes, you will.
All right, take us into stats.
Yeah, let's look at stats. Stat allocation right now. I know we went into this a little bit previously because you talked about how crit was kind of the be-all, end-all, love it stat. Are there any breakpoints? Are there levels? Is it just gem all the crit? Do you do that at every eye level, or do you only do it when you reach a certain eye level? Tell me about stats.
Well, stats. I mean, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah,
I've been rambling on.
Basically, for this, there's no actual breakpoints and such. There's a symbiotic relationship between mastery and crit. So when you have a ton of mastery and very low crit, you're going to see a much bigger return from crit, and vice versa. But at the moment, the stats on gear you get through Siege of Okrima lands you at more mastery than crit either way, which means that you will end up getting to the correct stat amounts. And as mentioned before, we didn't start getting to heavy amounts of crit until well into Throne of Thunder. So it's possible that at lower gear levels, you might want to actually go for mastery rather than crit, but I'm not entirely sure anymore. Mm. But that's like starting out and looking for rate level, because you can't get enough crit to actually make it noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of like the really amalgamated trinkets that are just like ridiculously good.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm always thinking about Proving Grounds and CMs, because I know when I boost a new alt or when I'm leveling a new alt, the first thing I want to do is, I want to go do challenge modes. And, that's scaled down to 463. So would you gem intellect there, or would you gem crit? I assume you would be disc. Disc is what you would want in challenge modes.
Yes,
and
you
CMs,
would.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because CMs, you don't have any mana concerns because you use that Klaxi Amber thing to fully regen your mana.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So basically, as disc, you can just spam your most expensive heals, and when there's not damage going on, you can do Atonement to help DPS and get through the mode faster to get your goal times.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. What about you, Derevka? Anything else on stats?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There is a symbiotic relationship between the two. Generally speaking, you're not going to see one kind of favor over the other until you get around a 10% discrepancy between the two. But generally, you're going to want to favor, at least in current content, you're going to favor crit and crit gems on everything, because all the gear that's in Siege, particularly tier gear, is all mastery laden. Mastery. And I'm not 100% convinced that wasn't intentional to try to throttle the amount of crit that we had before it kind of got out of control. But at least in current content, int is inferior to secondary stats, particularly.
Isn't every single healer's tier set mastery spirits?
Sure.
Seems to recall that.
I mean, it seemed like almost everybody was like less desirable.
Yeah.
Well,
healer masteries are kind of weird, except for paladins.
Yeah, paladins love them some mastery.
I'm sure chat
because they want to be disc.
They want to be disc priests.
They want to be disc priests and plate.
Oh my goodness. So I guess anything else to really touch on stats? That seems pretty simple.
Well, I mean, are you gearing at all for mana regen?
Yeah.
Like, are you
No.
gearing out of mana regen as much as you can? How is that working these days?
No spirit, and I'm happy.
Yeah, if I can get a heroic warforged item with dual stats and no spirit, I will take it, and I do.
Interesting.
I think I'm running
Why-
at sub 6k spirit at the moment because the
That's 'cause you
active
have two
regeneration.
resto shamans. You have two resto
No,
shamans.
no. I don't even need. I don't need any
The
of those.
accusing.
I don't need them. I don't need them, Derevka. I'm fine on my own and my soulless. Like, the active mana regeneration that Disc has at the moment is simply too strong because it's percentage based. They should have made it scale off of Spirit like they did with Power Word Shield earlier. And then they reverted that, or not reverted, changed that to be a baseline again. Like, if they made everything into Spirit scaling as they did with Divine Plea and Innovate, it would have been a ton better. We'd actually have to care about Spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really need it because you have the efficient filler, and that just got further exacerbated. Like, the only thing that got really dicey is if you're using a fight that demanded Halo regularly, and you got a bad timing on your clear casting proc. I mean, that's really kind of about it. I mean, but mana is not really a problem if you're doing it correctly. If you have a surplus of mana, you can just POH spam and DA pad everything. But right now, if you need to go into an efficient kind of regen mode, just smite the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that brings us right into talking about some talents then, since we were just talking about mana interaction.
Yep.
So your tier 45 talents is sort of your mana tier, as it looks like. So you got From Darkness Comes Light, Mindbender, and Solace, and Insanity, which, so spells gives you charges for a free Flash of Lights versus Super Shadow Fiend versus Empowered Holy Fire damage and a Smart Heal. More or less. What do you guys like in this tier? Do you have choices? Do you pick one and forget it? How's your level? How's your tier 45 mana interaction tier, Draco? What do you do?
Personally, I always go with Solace because that is the talent that'll give you the most mana regen if you use it efficiently, which, as Disc, you should be doing. Like, if you use that on cooldown, it'll return the most mana. Mindbender comes up. If you use Solace every 15 seconds, I think, Mindbender will start to overtake Solace slowly. So that means if you're good at getting your stuff out on cooldown, you want to go Solace because you want to be hitting Holy Fire on cooldown anyway as Disc. It's a free instant smart heal that does damage. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So it's basically between Mindbender if you aren't using Atonement well and Solace if you are. The From Darkness Comes Light, it has its uses in challenge modes because of the burst healing, but that's about it. Again, because you don't need the mana in challenge modes.
Right. Okay. Jeff, anything to add?
No, it's pretty much spot on. I mean, the real key is, the people kind of tend to forget is that Solace takes away the cost of Holy Fire, whereas if you should be casting it regularly, so it's effectively making that now null from a mana cost perspective. You can play with Mindbender if you want to do more damage. Mindbender deals more damage than baseline Shadow Fiend would because you're having it more regularly up. So if you're kind of just DPS parsing, go ahead and use Mindbender in that regard. I know that's kind of what I've been tending to do. If I want to, DPS parse, I guess, or just play with DPS, that's when I'll do that. But Solace is really kind of, if you're using Atonement correctly, Solace will be your best bet in that space. When From Darkness Comes Light is really only utilized in a holy perspective. Solace is probably least synergistic with holy due to the fact that you're not casting Holy Fire. You'd be artificially creating a rotation that doesn't really exist for holy. From Darkness Comes Light pairs well with holy due to the fact that it plays with the set bonus, allowing you to utilize Serendipity a little bit better, giving a bonus heal to that. And also holy tends to use Serendipity a little bit more because you're not going to really care if you get a flash heal proc as Disc, because the only thing you use it for is a weird spot heal, but you would have done with a smite, or if you're trying to use Train of Thought for whatever particular reason with flash heal, you could, I suppose. But from a rating perspective, Disc, it's either Solace or Mindbender depending on how you play the class. And then holy, for the most part, it's Mindbender if you want the raw mana, or if you're leveraging your set bonus, you'll use From Darkness.
So a little bit of choice there. That doesn't sound too terrible as a tier then. Not too bad.
It's not that bad, but
I mean, on Final Boss, we've broken down so many talent tiers, and we've heard so many that are like, you pick this, and the other two are trash.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So it's good to hear that there is some wiggle room. It's good. We're at level 75 tier, Anna.
Yeah, level 75, Twist of Fate, Power Infusion, and Divine Insight. So is this going to be a tier where you actually have a choice as well, or is there a pick that you all pretty much make always?
Nope.
Drevka's laughing, so let's just go to him.
Twist of Fate, all the things. I mean, there's ads on everything. Every fight has ads, so you get to leverage that. And then, because it procs off of both healing done and damage. So if the fight has ads, you can easily get the buff up on that from damaging the ad through either Atonement or even your level 90. You Divine Star something that damage that you'll trigger it that way. And same with the healing perspective. I mean, every fight, there's an opportunity to get Twist of Fate. I mean, probably the fight that's most exaggerated with it is probably Spoils, because it's just all trash packs.
Yeah.
Much as I hate Spoils, it's just everywhere.
You'll end up having almost 100% uptime, like Stock during the Screech phases too.
Yeah, because everyone gets whoop, Divine Star, Twist of Fate, yay! And it double dips on Atonement. It double dips on the damage dealt to the boss, and then back on the healing end as well.
Oh wow, that's true.
Holy Divine Insight, for the most part, is another good option. I mean, it's a little bit trickier to get quite as much Twist of Fate uptime as Holy, because unless you're going to be intentionally damaging a target to try to cheese the ability, you certainly can. It's a little bit trickier. Divine Insight tends to be a little bit more.
If you wanted to use the Twist of Fate to damage, you'd take Soulless from the previous tier for the dot that would refresh it for a while, so you could keep Twist of Fate rolling. Yeah. I
use Holy Fire or Solace on Garrosh if he's not under the 35% benchmark on the mind control targets, or the weapons if they're in range. But every fight, there's always like, where can I cheese Twist of Fate? At least that's
Is that always the mindset?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Look, the Shadow Priests do it too.
Yeah.
Shadow Priest going into Malkarok with no hit points to get 100% Twisted Fate uptime.
Oh. I made the mistake of void shifting that, and it's just then you get both of you have under.
Oh gosh. So this tier, not so many choices then.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
What uses Power Infusion, or is it a dead spell?
It's dead.
It was great. It was great.
It's dead and buried.
I mean, it worked. No.
No, see,
it's a nice. I think a lot of Disc Priests came into Mists wanting to use before they buffed Twist of Fate. I mean, they buffed Twist of Fate. They brought down the threshold from, was it 20% up to 35%, if I'm remembering correctly, in 5.2 on the double check. But they increased the HP level and where it would trigger. At that point, it became even better to use, particularly for Disc, because you're damaging things. But a lot of Disc Priests used Power Infusion because they were just used to having it. It was something that you got in...
It was part of the game, yeah.
It's part of the game. Like, as Disc, you had Power Infusion. And you were just used to kind of having it. And then it was like, oh, and it's mine? I don't have to, like, pick which DPS target to put it on? I get to use it for me? I think a lot of Disc Priests kind of defaulted to that as... This is my Oompa Loompa, and you can't have it. And
okay, yeah.
Oompa Loompa.
I don't know. It's the first thing that came to
It's
mind.
the
I
first
don't want to talk about it.
Don't talk about it. Okay. Okay.
You kind of totally Vrook assaulted it, and you're like, I want it. It's mine.
Yeah. Well,
Is
okay,
that
then.
a Willy Wonka reference?
Yeah, you got it. You good. You're good. So you're level 90 talent tier.
Yeah, moving right along to the best talent tier, level 90.
The best talent tier, yeah. So
Now, I know you guys switch these up sometime because I do see different ones in Raid.
Yeah, I mean, so you've got Cascade versus Divine Star, a.k.a. the most OP spell in World of Warcraft, versus Halo, the most noisy spell in the World of Warcraft. So, which of these spells brings the numbers? Do you? I see these rotated around a lot. Does it really get rotated around a lot, or do you guys just pick like Divine Star all the time, or does Halo come in there? What happens, Draco?
It depends if the raid is stacked up or if it's spread out. If it's stacked up, you go Divine Star. If you're spread out, you go Halo. If you want to whole numbers, you go Cascade.
Is that it? That's like the
Kind of, yeah.
that's the explanation.
That's pretty much it. I mean,
okay.
No, I mean,
No, okay.
to expand, I mean,
Sure.
Divine Star. Part of the reason why Divine Star is so overpowered is that it's fairly cheap. It has a short cooldown, and it bounces back. If it only went one way, I don't think it would be quite as ridiculous. But it goes out and then comes back in. So any fight that has a group up, or even if half the raid is grouped up, and you can hit them, you're going to get an incredible amount of healing done, both as holy and as discipline. Let's kind of ignore the fact that you're going to create Divine Aegis on the entire raid, but you do. Halo's expensive. It's some situations it's very difficult to use on cooldown, but if you're prepared to use it, you can. If your raid is spread out and you get a distance,
you have
tracker
to remember the mana cost actually comes out to be pretty much the same as Divine Star because you use Divine Star more often. It's not because it's that much more expensive. It's just a larger chunk of your mana at once.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's times where I've gotten close to being dry, and then like it comes out off cooldown. You're like, oh, son of a bitch, it's off cooldown. I need to wait. All right, we're good.
Yeah.
But it's there. But I think the Cascade is a little bit different, particularly for Holy, because you can kind of leverage Cascade, kind of like you were a monk using Uplift when you use the Empowered Brew, whatever it's called, because you can use Cascade to refresh Renew if you're in Chakra Serenity. And that's really kind of how a lot of Holy Priests play in 10-man, is leveraging that Renew refresh with Cascade, because it technically counts as a direct heal, not an AoE heal, which is probably not intentional, but at this point, what do you do? But Cascade will work in situations, but you have to realize that Cascade is much slower to get out because it splits. It's an exponential jump to the raid. So if your raid is very spread out, you need to kind of cast Cascade before cast Cascade, and recognize that it's not going to be quite as bursty as Halo or Divine Star would be. So it really kind
Not to mention, if they're not very spread out, it's going to be weaker because it works off of how far it can jump.
Right.
The wind-up is far too long.
Man, the only fight I reliably used Cascade on was Shot Fear.
I used Halo on that one because standing in the middle, you could reach all the prisons.
Now, how does, real quick, because I don't know how it works, does Halo work the same way with DPS Halo, that it has to like travel all the way out to do the most healing, or does it heal regardless?
Yes. It heals regardless, but it heals more the further out it gets.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also comes into a point. I know people have complained about that in regard that you have to use another add-on to really kind of gauge your efficiency based on like how far the spell goes. I know Shadow Priest have to. You have to know that you're 39 yards away from the target, so your Halo hits at the very end of the cast, right? But do you worry about that from a healing standpoint as much, or?
You figure it out. I mean, using Lei Shan as an example, like when we were healing with Halo on Thunderstruck, I would kind of run at an angle from the rest of the group, and then Halo to hit them at more of an ideal range. Because that's one of the worst things. Yeah. You just gotta make sure that, please don't target me. Please don't target me.
Pray to the RNG gods. Yeah.
Body and soul myself in there first. So.
Right.
Right.
And that, I mean, you do have to kind of, and that's, I think, a skill cap level that comes with Halo, as well as Star. I mean, I part of the reason why I love Divine Star as much as I do is the same reason why I liked old Light of Dawn, is you had to be consciously aware of both where you were and your targets were, and you had to heal in that kind of third dimension outside of grid and all of the level 90 abilities. Less so Cascade because it's a little more fire and forget, but all of the level 90 abilities have some sort of third dimension healing outside of your grid.
Okay.
Now, do you like these level 90 spells? I mean, you guys have talked a whole lot about which ones you use when, but these are some of the spells that really change, or at least impact the way that you play, and you switch them around based on how the encounter is. Do you like them? Do you hate any of them? How do you feel about them?
All the numbers.
Tell me
all the numbers.
Tell me how you feel. I mean, because you've talked a lot about how they're used, but
I severely dislike Cascades. Mostly because it's too slow, as mentioned. Like, it takes so long to wind it up that if you use Cascades, you're basically just using it to try and shield low, pointless damage that's going on to screw over the other healers. Like, you cast Cascade on cooldown in order to get shields out to heal up Bonecracker or stuff that the other healers would get anyway. It's just there to annoy people. Also, I tested Cascade once on Juggernaut, and I didn't know that it would not use my mouse over, so I spent an entire Juggernaut encounter DPSing Juggernaut with Cascade.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Oh, you can cast it on a mob or a...
Yeah,
just like a
it
Shadow
works
Priest.
like DPS spell if you do that.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, all three of those have that interaction. It's weird. Just flips values based on if you're healing or if you're shadow.
Correct.
Okay. I know they all look
And changes
cool.
yellow versus purple.
Yellow, purple, yeah, exactly. I know they all look cool. Like, they're some of the newest impressive spell effects we've seen in Mist. They look really nice. I mean, one of mine's a passive. It gives me a different icon. That's all I see. Like, that's it. So, it's not really a big of a deal. But Cascade, Divine Star, and Halo all look cool as hell, so. But what about you, Derevka? You like them? Hate them? Same thing on Cascade?
It's all about big numbers. Well, I said
The
before,
big numbers.
Cascade's slow. Cascade's slow.
Right.
It requires
Yeah.
build up for it to be used. It's kind of interesting to kind of like see it going on. It's pretty. All of them are pretty. My issue, I think, sometimes with Divine Star is the graphic does kind of tend to bug out, and it's like, wait, where did it go? It went through the ground. Okay. But other than that, no. You gotta love it, particularly as disc, because it's like boom, DAs on everybody.
On everybody.
Everybody in front of me. I mean, sometimes you tend to get yourself into positional trouble. I mean, I fully admit, like, I sometimes tend to cheat back on fights. Like phase 1 Garrosh, I'll kind of cheat back and then just don't target me with the weapon, and then it does, and then the weapon's not in the mob group. So it's just stand in the back.
Stand on top of the tank.
Yeah.
Stand on top of the tank, mate.
Yeah.
I do, but like my tank jumps. Shira jumps the entire fight.
Then you jump with him.
So, before we get out of here, let's give you guys a little bit of your closing soapbox, as it were, to impart some tips or tricks or hints or lesser-known facts or just some parting words on your priest brothers and sisters. So, what you got for them? And then I have one question before we wrap up, but let's give your soapbox first. So, Derevka, you first.
Learn to cheese shenanigans with spectral guys. It is like stupid. It's like I never played a rogue. My hunter is miserable, but being able to take
So honest.
my hunter is miserable. All I have her for is to collect pets. No, but being able to cheese boss abilities, like you can use it to duck aim. Like, it's great. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm targeted for aim. Spectral guys. No one has to worry about soaking the damage for aim. Oh, you're hit with mesmerize. Not anymore. Spectral guys it. You get to duck it. And you can do the same with saw blades on Siegecrafter. And it's just kind of fun to have. I feel like I have like a pally bubble. That's what it makes me feel like I have a pally bubble or a vanish or a feign death. It's nice to have a. I've never had a cheese ability, and it's nice to have a cheese ability.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, because it's not something that I think a lot of people think of when they're playing their priest, and it's a really good skill to have when you're, especially if you're just learning raid encounters, is what can I use this for? What can I break with this ability?
What can I break?
What can I break? Yeah,
Well,
I mean, that's how I think of it with bubbles, so.
You normally
Reset
wouldn't take
bosses.
it. You look at it. Yeah. I mean, like, you normally wouldn't take it because you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a PvP talent. At first blush, it reads as a PvP talent. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but you can kind of use it to use other stuff, and it's nice.
Derevka, what about you? Imparting wisdom?
Want to say, make sure you have proper rate frames as a priest. Make sure you get some rate frames that has cluster finders on them so you can cast your Prayer of Healings efficiently. I see far too many priests, including people applying to our guild, that doesn't use cluster finders, which basically just hurts your game. If you can know for free where everyone is standing and who to cast on to get the most out of your heal, why wouldn't you?
Which, I'll bring this screenshot up real quick here. You have the screenshot for me. It's a little bit blurry because it's a really small screenshot, but so a cluster finder basically shows you this little like flowered, and if it's green with 5, that means if you cast a prayer healing on this target, it can get its full bounces. But if it says 3 or 2, don't do it. Right?
Exactly. Well, it shows all of them. There's also some, like, it shows everything above 3, basically.
Yes.
Set it, or above 2, rather.
Yes.
Then there's cooldown indicators, weakened soul, and such.
Now, do you have links you can drop in chat for us, something like that? I mean, I'll link this stuff like this in the description box on YouTube. But yeah. Not
exactly. I mean, it's just like...
What is it called?
This add-on is called Voodoo. Yeah, Voodoo rate frames, and it's fairly easy to set up. Like, it has, you can basically see everything on it, and the author of it has a lot of guides up for how to set up the add-on, and it's fairly straightforward to download it.
That looks cool. I didn't know this existed. This looked cool. When you sent the screenshot to me, I was like, oh, that's really neat. You can actually find out individual raid locators based off of the person to know where your ability would be best be used. That's really nice. It's nice. I mean, like the cooldown stuff and the weakened soul indicator, that's fluffy, sure, helps, but the prayer of mending or the prayer of healing bounce and hits and stuff like that's really nice. It's good. That's good. It's very nice. Very very helpful.
Yeah,
very
I mean, definitely raid frames. You know, not everybody loves Voodoo. I know that our healers, some of them use it and some of them don't, and I know it can use a lot of resources. But if you have like your raid frame set up well, like if you use grid, set it up right. Set it up the way that it works best for you. If you use Voodoo, then set that up the way that it works best for you. But for God's sake, set something up. I mean, I have to say, I'm not sure if like Grid and such has plugins in order to find turf classes. It does. Yeah. So isn't it only Grid 2?
It should Grid. I mean, I don't use Grid 2. I use Grid 1, but Grid has it.
Never mind then. It didn't back when like I was looking for it.
Grid
no, it
status,
didn't
Grid status, priest, AoE.
Fair enough.
Sounds good. There you go. Well, alrighty. Before we get out of here, before we move on to the after show, which those of you that are new to the show, we do have an extra part of the show that we'll get to after a little bit of a break here in a moment, which is just like your questions. You can have any questions, you can tweet us at FinalBossTV. You can also ask us in the chat when we come back from a little bit of break. But I have one question left for you guys. This was supposed to be an after show question, but I want to put it in the main show because it's awesome. And it's a quick one. This came in from Ophia on US Trollbane. If you could use any one of your priest spells in real life, which one would it be and why? Derevka.
Leap of faith. Troll all the things.
Oh, no.
No question.
Leap of faith. Okay. Draco?
Well, playing on all the fat jokes that's been going on in chat, I'd say levitate so I don't have to walk upstairs.
Oh!
Oh, wow. Nice. I like that.
Oh, no way. Hey, that's a good one, but fair enough.
This is a good one.
Yeah. Chat's been a little crazy today, but we do appreciate you all coming out to the main show. And it is, of course, now button time.
So it is.
There it is. There's the button. Yep. Oh, my goodness. It's been a good show today. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Around the table real quick, of course, we have the lovely co-host of FinalBossTV. Wait, I think VLC is breaking again. But there's Anna. Hi, Anna. You can go follow her on Twitter at AnnaFail.
At AnnaFeel. Come follow me on Twitter. Not always promised to be WoW-related tweets, but
that's something, always. Right?
Always.
Yep. We also had joining us over the pond. We had Draco, the GM of Echoes. You can go follow them more in their mythic raid stuff at echoes-guild.eu. Thank you for being on the show, sir. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
You have a little bit of a disco show going there now. It's pretty good. I like it.
Well, we've talked about as much about disco as it's been used this expansion, so.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
I see what you did there.
We did. Good stuff, sir. And then we had Derevka. You can go follow him and all his totally positive tweets at Twitter at Derevka.
You make it sound like I just rage nonstop.
Well, you are kind of like a male version of Anna sometimes.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding.
You just like fired shots in 2 directions. Ouch.
Is that a compliment or an insult to which one of us?
I don't know.
You know what, Derevka? We're going to take it as a compliment collectively.
There you go.
We're both awesome.
Compliment. Done.
Yeah.
And you can also Internet high five, yes indeed. And you can also see all of Derevka's stuff on How to Priest. Make sure that you go there too, priests watching the show.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. It was awesome. Thank you for being on the show. And of course, there's me, and you can find all of my goofiness outside of the show and all my social media stuff at twitch.tv TLM. Twitch makes it look like it's an I, but it's an L. All right. So, quick announcement. Next week, Anna is moving. Right, Anna, you're moving?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I honestly was going to take a day off from work and do it during the week so that I didn't have to miss Final Boss, but I can't. The only time I have people to help me is Sunday, so.
Not a big deal. It should be okay. I am planning, I'm not going to tell you who's going to be on the show now. I'm going to push it back a week. No, you should know who's going to be on the show anyway, but I'm trying to put together a little bit of a kind of lazy episode that should be fun. Pull some other guests from the past and do like a live Q&A of different sorts of things, maybe of Final Boss stuff or a class-based oriented things or rating or whatever. He's in the chat room right now. I asked him in Skype, and I'm totally putting him on blast right now, but he needs to come on the show next week. Get Nobble to come on the show with me next week, just for a 90-minute session, no after show, just to have some fun. I'll bring on 2 more guests, and we'll just talk for an hour and a half to you guys. So, incoming spam in chat. But that's what we're doing next week.
Chat will want Nobble.
I will update you guys on Facebook and Twitter. Links are down below. We'll see you next week, of course, for a fun show. And then after that, we'll have another class revisit, and he will be here. Just shh, it's okay. He'll be here. And 1+1. But we're going to see you next week at 4 p.m. at PST, 10 p.m. CAST over there for the EU folks. And for everyone behind the scenes at Final Boss, thank you very much for watching. Trust in the coin. Have fun at work tomorrow. And until the after show, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Say bye, everybody. Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
See you in the after show.